Recognition, power, and influence is your birthright, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 260. Today's episode is the last episode I'll be recording in 2024. And as I was thinking about what to share with you, I couldn't help but look back on the last year and really reflect on some of the biggest trends that I saw for my clients, especially those clients who had the most success last year. And this wasn't circumstantial success. These were opportunities and gifts that were given to them that were not so fun. And you might have been one of those women as well who had something not so great happen to her in 2024. And were you able to turn that into a gift, into something special that you could create for yourself? Or maybe perhaps you're still in it, you're still in the muck. And I am sharing with you in today's episode what really turned and changed things for my clients who had some of the most success in 2024. I look forward to seeing what amazing things we're able to create together next year. But for now, let's take a look back on 2024. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. As we're closing out the year 2024, I am reflecting on some of the opportunities that were presented to me throughout the past year, as well as many of my clients. And I recently did a year in reflection and looking forward exercise with my leadership table mastermind. And one of the questions that I asked them as part of that reflection was, what were some of the unexpected gifts that you received in 2024? And this identifying question is a really fantastic question that I'd like you to start to ask yourself this year when you look back. And I'll give you in today's episode a couple of reasons why, and then also an example of some of the gifts that my clients received throughout the year 2024. But before I do that, I want to encourage you. I actually have a download of all of the questions that I asked my leadership table mastermind as part of the year in reflection. And if you email me at coach@stacymayer.com, I will happily send you a copy of the entire worksheet that we did as part of this year in reflection and looking forward. These are 5 really stellar questions that you can ask yourself, and they're hopefully quite self-explanatory, but I have laid them out in a way where each question builds on the next one, and it's just a great opportunity to journal and to kind of think about the past year and then also what you want to build on in 2025. So definitely email me at coach@stacymayer.com and I'll send you a copy of that worksheet. And also, in the meantime, I really want to spend today's episode to focus on that idea of gifts. When I am thinking about gifts, I am actually not meaning the bonus that you received at the end of the year and like, wow, this is amazing. I got exceeds expectations, a $75,000 bonus for no reason. And actually, in complete transparency, we didn't see a lot of that in 2024 for my clients. They weren't getting the huge bonuses in 2024. And that leads me to what I mean specifically about the idea of gifts, which means something that is given to us that we don't really want. Maybe that's a layoff. Maybe it's a new boss. Maybe it's laying off our entire team and then we're the ones left behind. Maybe it's the unexpected non-promotion that happens. Maybe it's feeling like you took 2 steps backwards when it came to your personal development or growth. whatever that might be for you, it could be something on the personal side. For me, if you've been listening to this podcast, I had a lot of challenges at the end of the last school year. And there were also some opportunities where I over volunteered myself and I really was starting to experience burnout at the beginning of the year. And so when I did the reflection as part of asking myself, because of course I did the exercise with my clients in the room, and I was asking myself about these unexpected gifts, that in particular, the challenges that I had at the school with my daughter was exactly the first thing I thought of. And I wrote that down as being an unexpected gift. So hopefully, at this point, you're on the other side of that unexpected gift. Or maybe you're just like on the other side by 24 hours. That could be fine too. But there are these opportunities that happen to us throughout the year that suck. And I think in particular, 2024 was a pretty crappy year. And if you live in the United States, you also know another reason the new president that we have coming in 2025 is another crappy thing that happened this year. So we have a lot of opportunities to look at these terrible things that happen to us and really reflect how they might possibly be a gift, not really in disguise, like actually a flat out gift to us. And that's what I want to talk about today's episode. So if you're on Instagram or you're on other platforms, like even like Google Photos, they'll do like a year in review and they'll talk to you about trends. You attended over 150 yoga classes last year. You drank over 47 cups of coffee. Oh God, I'm sure I drank 365 cups of coffee last year if I counted it. And so these types of moments, these monumental moments where we can kind of reflect back on the year, that part of trending and thinking about the, milestones that we hit throughout the year are very, very important. And then I want to reflect on some of the trends that I saw in 2024. And the biggest trend that I saw was this idea of terrible gifts. I already mentioned basically what they were for my clients, but I would say pretty much every client that I had some sort of challenge, like a big, big challenge in 2024. And these are clients that I've been working with for a very long time, some of them, and some of them are brand new. So they came to work with me as part of that challenge. So let's say they were laid off and then they started looking for a job for about 4 or 5 months, but they're not finding any opportunities. And so then they hire me as their coach to help them make it into that next level of leadership through their next job. Or they're about to be laid off and they're worried about what's going to come next. And so they try and set themselves up. But then I have clients that have been working with me for several years who experienced, like I said, like massive layoffs at their company, or even needing to lay off most of their team, or feeling like their company's in a hiring freeze and they had been promised a promotion and now that promotion's not going to happen. So whatever that might be for them, this was an unexpected gift that was given to them. And the biggest trend that I saw in 2024 is the women who came out on top, and I'll tell you some of the ways that they came out on top, are the ones who were basically in control. So the word that I think of when I look back at 2024 is choices. The women who had choices and who knew what their choices were the winners. Not the women who miraculously overcame a layoff or like didn't get laid off, because no one wants to be the person left behind who happened to work at the one company that wasn't, experience massive reorgs or whatever. Not just because of your circumstances were so perfect, but also on top of that, because they knew what their choices were. So, even though a lot of the women that I've been working with for years experienced some larger than normal challenges at their organization this year, I'm not even joking. Anybody that I've been working with for more than a year has choices. The women who I've been working with for 2 weeks have choices, but you especially see it in the behavior of the women inside of the leadership table mastermind, because they'll make an announcement like at the beginning of each coaching call, I'll say something like, "What are your wins?" And they'll say something like, "Well, as you know, I had to meet personally with 20% of my team and let them know that they were going to be laid off beginning November 1st. And I guess what my win is that it didn't keep me up at night. Not because they didn't care. Of course they cared, right? Of course it was hard, but because they knew and they were able to lead the people on their teams to a real and possible potential future outcome, right? They were really able to support them and set them up for what's next. Like one of the women inside of my mastermind was even able to relocate most of her team, and she had to fight like crazy to make that happen. But she was able to do that for them because she knew what her choices were. And instead of getting caught up in her own worry, like, what about me? And what does this mean for me? And, just like most of my clients, they're very well set up for a promotion. Well, now it looks like I'm not going to be getting that, right? So everything that happens to us, if we have choices, if we know what our choices are, then we're able to move forward. So my gift to you and my word of 2024 as I reflect back are choices. And that's the way that you win when you have these unexpected gifts given to you. So let me give you another example of what I would call maybe unempowered choices. So like I said, if people aren't working with me directly, they'll often come to me after about 4 or 5 months of being laid off and trying to figure out what's next for them. And this is a great thing. Like, it's fine. I don't mind it. Like, let's say, for instance, if you're somebody who is laid off, you might have been directed at work to an employment firm that's going to help you get your resume set up and help you interview for jobs. So you want to try that out first. You're like, oh, it's free. My company's paying for it. Now, I want you to remember that this is the same organization that just laid you off, right? So putting all your eggs in the basket of the organization that just laid you off, I just want you to question that for 1 second. Now, I don't mind using that as a resource, but using that as your only resource is a very disempowering decision. I'm just saying. But on the other side, also what they'll do is they'll like sit in that, they'll wait in that. They're not really thinking about the choices that they have. They're just kind of going online, applying for jobs, seeing what happens. And then before they know it, 5 or 6 months roll around and they're like, what choices do I have? I feel like nothing is working. So a lot of women will first come to me to start working on I have this like immersive coaching package where you can work with me for 2 months one-on-one. And they'll come to me inside that program. And they're like, I need a job now, right? Like, I need to figure this out now. Now, the good news is you have spent 5 or 6 months like figuring stuff out. It's just you don't know what it is. And you're trying to weed through what to do, what to keep doing, what not to keep doing. And then I help hone it all in to actually create that next role for you. So I had a woman recently get hired and she actually said to me, she's like, wait, am I the fastest promotion that you've had? So she got hired at a different company, but a higher level position. And I was like, well, not exactly. you know, Even though it happened in less than 4 weeks, she got a new position. But I was like applauding her, like it's a really big deal. So I only say not exactly because I know what's possible. But truthfully, I want to acknowledge her that she was able to turn this around. So something that she had been working on for 5 or 6 months, she finally was able to figure it out and it all clicked, right? Because I was able to pull all the pieces together and figure it out. I was able to show her what her choices are. I was able to show her what was right in front of her that she could begin to capitalize on. Now, my clients who are figuring out like what's next for them and they're been working for me for a while, they have created these choices for themselves ahead of time. And so one thing that really is exciting for me is even if I have somebody who hasn't been working with me directly, but yet they've read my book or been listening to this podcast for a while, they know that it's their responsibility to go out and create choices for themselves. And so back in January, I had one client who was really working on building a relationship through 15-minute ally meetings. And she still had a job at the time. And the job was fine. She didn't know that they were going to do massive layoffs in September. Hello. But she did know that she was ready for that next level leadership position, and she wanted to be promoted in 2024. So she was really focused on that. It wasn't actually happening at her organization. So she started building allyship outside of her organization. Fast forward to the time when she started to see that she was going to be laid off, and she received a very generous package as part of that layoff. But she immediately stepped into action. She immediately made those phone calls with her allies that she had built in January, letting them know what was about to happen. But more importantly, letting them know that she is now available to lead on their team, like from a very empowered place. Not like, hey guys, I need a job, help me out, but more like, hey, I'm ready. Remember that project we talked about working on together? Let's do it now. And the women that took December seriously, and what I mean by that is that, you heard in my previous podcast episode about all of the opportunities that are available to you between now and the end of the year. The women who really spent November and December continuing to interview, I had several women in the month of December actually get job offers. And the great thing is that these job offers have start dates of January 15th, February 15th, March 15th, but they've already signed the employment contracts and they're ready to go. They haven't even had to put in their 2 weeks notice yet. Can you imagine starting out 2025 knowing what your next opportunity was going to be, but also knowing that between now and then you had so much space and freedom, while there might be other people around you who are freaking out, who are upset, who are working really hard to figure things out. And you're not one of them. And that is an absolutely incredible place to be. And it is available to you simply by knowing what your choices are. So, looking back on 2024, I want you to reflect on what those unexpected gifts might have been and how you were able to turn them into specific choices so that you could begin to make progress and move forward to whatever might be next for you. That is my direction to you. That is my gift to you as you begin to think about what could be next for 2025. Now, you know that I am definitely a very positive glasses half full. And so I don't spend a lot of thought time thinking about what's not working. I don't worry about layoffs. I don't worry about people in my industry aren't hiring right now, stories like that, because I know what's available to my clients. And I know that these are also opportunities for them to stand out from the noise. And I want that for you. In 2025, this is your time to stand out from the noise, to begin to take those choices that you have into the next year. That is my wish for you. So make sure that you email me to get these reflection questions. And I want you to start thinking about what is available to you in 2025 as a result of the choices that you've created in 2024. Let me know what you're able to come up with. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, I hope you have an absolutely amazing holiday season, a fantastic end to the year, and I cannot wait to see what we are able to create in 2025. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next year. Bye. Before you go, I have a question for you. Do you know how close you are to your next promotion? Really? Not what your boss has told you, not what you even believe to be true, but have you actually taken the time to sit down, take an assessment, review the 5 categories that it takes to get promoted into senior executive leadership positions and decided where you fall in each category and given yourself a ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 of how close you are to getting your next promotion? Have you done this? Well, now's your chance. If that feels interesting to you and you're like, hey, I want to know exactly how close I might actually be or how far away you might be and what it's going to take to get you even closer, then I invite you to take my promotability quiz. This is a quiz that I put together with practical tips that actually tell you where you're lacking and where you're winning. What are the areas that you actually need to improve and not necessarily what your boss is telling you all the time, so that you can take concrete steps towards landing that next promotion and changing the face of the leadership table. Go to yourpromotabilityscore.com to take your free assessment today.